Isha, send why you all right. So hello and welcome everybody to our wonderful webinar this morning and evening, depending on which time zone we are in. And it is about how these entrepreneurs started a global VC fund. So before I start with who are these entrepreneurs, let me introduce you Neeraj Vora. He's a forward-thinking, seasoned executive and board director with 20 plus years of investing, strategic financial management and capital markets experience and a record of success achieving company objectives. He's demonstrated his ability to create shareholder value. He was nominated for NVT's CFO of the Year Award 2019 in the Emerging Growth category. He's a founding member of FBR's technology, investing banking practice, and leader of FinTech Tech Services Group. And during his decade-long tenure at the investment bank, he completed over $3 billion of transactions that included dozens of initial public offerings, follow-on equity offerings, buy-side and sell-side merger and acquisition transaction, strategic advisory assignments, and private placements. So that is extremely impressive. I'll move to young entrepreneurs. There's Sanjeet Singh Sani. Both of them are in UAE at the moment. So Sanjeet is an entrepreneur and an investor. He has co-founded and exited 2 startups. He holds a bachelor's degree from Carnegie Mellon University and a master's from Imperial College London. Currently, he runs a hybrid investment fund, which is focused on large and mid-cap equities, global debt, and top cryptocurrencies. He also serves as a startup mentor, and he's an angel investor across multiple industries. Then we have with us Angad Singh Kohli. Angad has worked with Goldman Sachs. He's an entrepreneur and brings an experience from top global markets, both in the US and the UK. He holds a bachelor's degree from Delhi University, my alma mater as well. And he's a master's from Claremont Graduate University. He has worked in investment banking, fintech, and has played a pivotal role in expanding his family-owned real estate private equity business in India. He has also been an angel investor across multiple industries. So these are our 3 VCs, and we have with us our moderator, Parminder Singh Sethi. He's been with us with PCC since, I think, its inception. He's a trustee, he's a board of director, and we are extremely grateful because this was very last minute that he has come on board and is going to help us with moderating this webinar. So over to you, Parminder.
All right, thank you, Nimrit. I appreciate the wonderful, glowing introduction on Saturday morning. And thanks for joining Neeraj, Angad, and Sanjeet. As you know, this world's been taken over by VCs. My world got taken over this morning. So, you know, I am thankful to be here. And I welcome you all to this wonderful panel and everybody who's joining. Good morning, good evening, where you're from. So, I guess the goal of today's meeting is to kind of get the chat going as to what is a VC, how do you how did you guys come up with these ideas and such, so that our listeners and people who are watching can kind of get some sense of if they wanted to either join or become a VC, or kind of learn from your experiences how to deal with you guys. So let's just say, let me start with you, Neeraj. How did you come up with, you've been in this world, you've been an investment banker, and for full disclosure, I've known Neeraj for some time. So why don't you share your experience as to how did you come up with this idea, and kind of talk about some fundamentals and stuff?
Sure. Sure. Thank you, Parminder. Great to be here. It's an honor. And maybe I could spend just 30 seconds before I answer the question directly about trying to demystify venture capital a little bit, because I think a lot of people look from the outside in and may have some impressions that may or may not be accurate. I know I did before I got involved in the venture capital world, so that's why I'm bringing this up. So venture capital, what it's designed to do is try to make capital much, much more efficient for entrepreneurs. So think about it as in the public markets in the United States, in India, elsewhere, you can buy a mutual fund, and a mutual fund gives you exposure to lots of different public companies. It gives you a portfolio approach. there's a manager that's managing that fund, right? So that's what happens in the public markets. Everybody's familiar with that model. Venture capital is very, very similar, except it's for much earlier stage companies, and it's in the private markets. So you have a pool of capital, you have limited partners that contribute capital in the hopes of making good money. There's a pool of capital. It's managed by the Sanjits and Angats and Neerjas of the world. And then it's our job to go find those promising private companies and get an investment into those companies through a really good structure. And this is one of the very important things that's often not well understood by early stage investors who are not doing this professionally. In the public markets, you have a lot of regulatory bodies that have come up through decades, if not centuries at this point, designed to protect individual investors. Here in the US, it's the SEC, India, it's SEBI. In the private markets, there's actually no such thing at all today. So that's why if you choose to go the route of, hey, I want to have exposure to early stage private companies, very often it's much better if you go through a venture fund, because the venture fund knows what market valuations are, what market expectations are, and how to structure a deal with preferred stock with protections for the investors. Most individual investors don't do that because they don't do that for a living. So hopefully I've demystified a little bit. I'm sure everybody else on this panel can contribute more thoughts on that, but I just wanted to cover that a little bit up front. Parminder, in terms of my journey, how I got here, what got me excited about this is I've just created a new fund called the Bankers Helping Banks Fund. And for me, looking at how the venture markets are set up in the United States and having been in another venture firm, it was clear that it's not just about capital. Capital today is readily available if you have a really good idea. What was important for me as I created this venture fund was to have an ecosystem that helps both the LPs, and we can talk about that in more detail, as well as the portfolio companies. So in a nutshell, the Bankers Helping Bankers Fund, the LPs, the limited partners, are banks. We're investing in technology companies that specifically help banks. So it's very appealing for our investors because they get to see emerging technology companies quickly. It's very compelling for the portfolio companies because they know not only are they getting money from us, but they're also getting inroads into customers. And as an early stage company, solving for customer growth is the single biggest challenge that you have. So hopefully that's answered the question a little bit. I don't want to hog up the entire time, but I'm happy to drill into any of those answers a little bit more.
Thank you, Neeraj. I'll get back with you. Angad, how about you? What's your story?
Firstly, thank you so much for this opportunity to PCC. Good evening, good morning, wherever you're from the world, in the world. My story has been like, I started my journey from Delhi. So I did my bachelor's in mathematics from University of Delhi. And then in 2016, I got a chance to go to California for my master's in financial engineering. Obviously very quant-based, very numerical, like numbers were involved in both the education. Graduated in 2018, and I joined a fintech actually. And the fintech, my boss was a Sikh itself in New Jersey. So I moved from West Coast to East Coast, and he was running his payment processing shop. And that was in 2018, when fintech was coming up. So it was a good gig. Also got the, experience of the startup ecosystem. Was there for 7-8 months. And then in 2019, I was lucky enough to be picked by Goldman Sachs in Salt Lake City, Utah. So out of nowhere, I don't even know that where Salt Lake City was. I'm like, let me Google it.
I don't know where it is.
Sorry. Someone told me State of Mormons. I'm like, okay, let's do that. So yeah, so I went there in the investment banking division, obviously going from a startup to a multinational big bulge bracket was a change, but it was the transition was very smooth. Was there for 2 years. I was doing really well, got promoted to a senior analyst. But in US, the visa system, and I think so a lot of students can echo with me, I didn't get the H-1B. So it's a lottery system. I had 3 chances because of my STEM course, and I didn't get any of the 3 chances. So I remember that night, like one day my boss was like, okay, you didn't get the visa, you need to go back to India. So I was like, I got this Western experience for 5 years. I don't want to go back to India and waste it. So Goldman gave me 2 options, either to go to London or go to Sydney. And I chose London because obviously it was another financial hub in the world and I wanted to be in finance all the way. So I got relocated to London in June 2021, still in the same team, still in investment banking division. And yeah, so that's where I met my partner Sanjeet, and obviously I'll let him introduce himself as well. But by that time I was in the company for like 3.5, 4 years. So I've been in professional services for about 5-6 years. So I always had that entrepreneurial itch. I'm like, okay, the corporate experience is done. I need to start something of my own. And I am a risk averse guy, like let's take the risk. So I quit my job in October, like last year, and I have moved fully to Dubai. I'm actually living in a hotel right now. So it's been 3 months I'm living in a hotel room. And I have been working with Sanjeet on this fund, and it's a great idea. It's one of its kind, first of its kind in the Middle East as well. But I'll let Sanjeet introduce himself as well.
Thank you so much. That's very inspiring, Angad. And a lot of world's greatest things happened when the normal channels were shut down. So thank you for not letting you get H-1B, so you can create your own system. So great.
Thank you so much.
All right, Sanjeet, moving on to you. Why don't you tell us your story, but I'll add something to it. If you talk about why you thought that you could be the one, or who are the kind of people who should be thinking about creating a VC if they want to, include it with your introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, it's perfect. Well, again, Sat Sri Akal, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And thanks to the PCC for getting us all together and talking about this exciting field that does need demystification. So thank you, Neeraj Vijay, for giving us a little intro about venture capital. A little bit more about me. I've been a Middle Eastern kid for my entire life. Family has been here for over 70 years between Kuwait and the UAE. So this region is home. But if you're wondering where I got this accent, it was when I did my undergrad in the US at Carnegie Mellon. Spent a few years there. Obviously, great exposure, getting that Western education experience that Angad was also mentioning about, and that sort of really kickstarted my journey into entrepreneurship. Obviously, been here in the Middle East with the family. We've been established here for a little while now, so the family office background was always there as a comfort thing. But I've had the blessing of my family to go and venture into things that excite me and is something that I find value in to contribute as well. So I did take on the path of entrepreneurship. It depends how you look at it. It's a positive or a dreaded path, but a lot of learnings for me personally, and I like to look at the positive a bit more. Really exciting journey. I think the second last semester or so of my senior year at Carnegie Mellon, I co-founded an e-learning platform, so an ed tech platform focused on helping employers help train their employees better through like early video content module creations. So this is like a bit back in the day before, now we're coming on Zoom and everything is coordinated in that manner. But that worked out well, did that for, a little while, and then exited to a family office here in the Middle East. So that was the first one, and then sort of got forayed into, doing something in the professional services ecosystem in London and Dubai, working with top consulting firms, sovereign wealth funds, private equity shops as well. But it was, I think, like Angad mentioned, we both have the itch to, get back to doing something of our own and building something of our own. And that got me into dibbling and dabbling a bit into e-commerce, which was my second startup. Exciting journey. Started off with, general testing, product works well, and, just getting in the river a bit off the world of e-commerce, which is huge. But in that sea of e-commerce, something happened in Feb 2020, which we know to be COVID-19 now, and that sort of disrupted quite a lot of the supply chain that I was having sort of the supply chain retail focus. It was in shut for the majority of the part. So the pivot helped in some sense. We did pivot to a home decor e-commerce store, and that helped in a lot of sense because everyone was at home. It was a quarantine season. And one thing led to another, just taking chances and keeping on testing without giving up. And thankfully it worked out well. Did that exit about 6 or 7 months after the pivot to a Canadian e-commerce aggregator. And I guess then I started deciding what's the next step for me. What I learned more about myself, excuse me, and a little bit more about my interests is that I enjoy the macro a bit more. So having influence over more things. And I think that's what Neeraj Viji was also referring to, is have a venture fund, have an idea to manage multiple startups. And that gives a lot of access and visibility to the markets that you're interested in. So I did, realize that my interest lies more in private markets investments. I've been doing public markets investing for a little while now with, equities, debt, and also with cryptocurrencies a little, not too public, but, anyways, it's, you can just pick it off the shelf and go in that manner. Private markets is a bit more elusive to the general population. And this is something that also caught my attention. Like, I want to learn a little bit more about this. How do I do, take that next step? So I decided to do a specialized master's in venture capital and growth finance at Imperial College in London, which is where Angad and I met at the Gurdwara, re-met at a Gurdwara in Diwali 2021. And now we're here working on our fund together. So it's been an exciting journey. And, to answer the other part of the question, Parminder Viji, it's been exciting journey for sure. But in terms of what kind of profile is required to be a venture capitalist, there is no specific profile in some sense. I think it does help to have a technical background, like Neeraj Viji's worked at a venture fund before, has had the experience, but also emerging managers like Angad and myself. In some sense, yes, we've been entrepreneurs, angel investors, and have had professional experience. But the real thing is to have an awareness about what you want to do, curiosity, and the courage to take that next step. Anyone can take that forward. You just need to keep it going. We were fortunate enough to be selected by VC Lab, which is a fund accelerator based out of Silicon Valley. It's kind of like the Y Combinator for fund managers, if you will. It really helped us, crystallize our vision, our thesis, what we want to be doing, particularly within the venture capital ecosystem. And, you just keep an open mind, keep learning, keep talking to people. It's an exciting ecosystem. It's building companies from the ground up, and that's what Neeraj Viji was also referring to earlier. And if you look at the traditional life cycle of a company, we come at the early stage to build the company from the ground up, provide that seed capital, but also, potentially access to markets, other value add, to help really get momentum to the portfolio companies that we're investing in. And then they sort of go into a natural phase of growth, hopefully, towards public markets. That's what we see in the stock market. So if you look at Facebook, they were funded by VCs to begin with, and then they moved along a little bit more in the stages, and then moved on to getting an initial public offering in the stock market, and now anyone can invest in through the public markets. So we come in one stage before. So just, I guess, curiosity, interest, awareness, and of course, technical background does help. Like, we've been fortunate to get that financial background, all three of us. But there's people within the ecosystem that we've networked with, and they just, wanted to get more involved. And that does not only mean being a VC fund manager, but also an investor, or, obviously a startup, but also a venture partner, a deal scout. There's many ways to get involved. So it's just about, taking the first step, and, the tide will take you there.
Excellent. Yeah, I think so. In addition to that, I would say, like, passion to work with startups as well. Like, you'll be working with a lot of startups. So, and you're not only providing capital, you're providing value add, as Sanjeev said. So it's, either go-to-market strategy or any mentoring, any recruiting that you can offer to help scale that startup and obviously scale that, fund. So that's, I think so I just needed to add that, like, passion to work with startups.
Excellent. So courage, curiosity, itch to do something, not satisfied with where you are, typical Punjabi trait. So you have to be a Punjabi to be a VC.
There aren't many Punjabis in the VC, so that's why we are disrupting the market.
So that was going to say,
one of the key reasons, for sure.
What's that?
No, I was saying one of the key reasons for us, Virji, to get into it is because there's not a lot of people that look like this.
Yeah, so we two emerging Sikhs coming in the VC market. I don't think so. There aren't many in the world.
Awesome. Thank you for the wonderful introductions and kind of getting into the thick of it. I've been an entrepreneur for most of my life. I think I've always it has kind of been like, oh, how do you become a VC? You don't grow up, you grow up to be a technician, you grow up to be a finance manager, you grow up to be something. VC's got that, mix of all of that. I always wonder, why do you guys do it? And I'll mix a couple of questions there. Why do you do it? How does your typical day go by? I mean, we get up in the morning and people like me think of building companies. What do you guys think of? How does your day go by? Neeraj, what do you think?
Sure. So I think you asked two questions. Why am I doing it? And what does a typical day look like?
Right.
So why am I doing is because I found when I finally did end up in the venture world a few years ago, it was a really, really good fit for me from my capabilities perspective, from my personality perspective. Having the background in investment banking, which gives you the deal-making background, having been a CFO of several early-stage companies, gave me a good inroad into the financial side of the house. And then I've always just loved technology, ever since I was in college. So being in venture for me personally was the perfect combination of my interests and skill sets. I love talking to entrepreneurs. I love learning about new technologies, new software solutions, new products, new markets. In terms of a typical day, it's a very fast-paced day is probably the best way to put it. And one of my good friends who also has a venture fund, she told me it's the craziest kind of a career you can have, right? Because in any one given day, you can be talking to your limited partners who have capital with you, and you're doing nothing but client management in a good way. And that same day, you could be meeting with 5 different new companies that you've never met with before to try and see if this is something that you want to be investing in. That same day, you could be having a board meeting for one of your portfolio companies. So it can be, everything just gets thrown at you kind of 24/7. And it's one of the challenges of being a VC is being good at prioritizing where you want to spend your time in. So for me personally, I try to prioritize by the portfolio companies because they already have our cash. How do we help them grow? Looking at new companies because you don't want to miss out on an excellent opportunity going forward. And then of course, managing our customers, which are the LPs, the investors that are in our fund. But I can tell you, there is no such thing as a boring day in the life of a VC. It's much like being an entrepreneur, Parminder. I know you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. There is no boring day because you're doing multiple things all day long. You don't have, a fleet of 100 people that you're delegating everything to. So it's exciting, it's invigorating, and I honestly can't think of a better lifestyle than being in the VC world.
Excellent. Thank you, Neeraj. That's quite telling of who you are. And since I know you personally, I can't imagine you doing anything else, really. How do you, so this is open to Sanjeet and Angad as well. Obviously, if you guys want to add to what Neeraj was saying, please do so. But how do you guys go about, it's not like people are selling, looking for money on the street, obviously. How do you go about looking for opportunities? How do you qualify them? What do you look for when you look at somebody says, I need some money? Sanjeet?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's very important to understand why you're investing in a particular niche, why you're investing in a particular kind of startup. And then that sort of helps you understand the framework of investments. So for us, we've devised our own, framework that helps us qualify particular startups. Because, the good thing for us is when you become a VC, deals come to you, yes, but you also have to source deals in some sense. So that happens through your network, the connections you've made, co-investors that, club money together into, investment deals. So that does help a lot. But for us internally to make that decision, we look at a framework we developed called pitches, particularly for us. But, I guess the model for that is looking at, number one, the market, obviously, that the startup is operating in, and how much of it can it capture. Because at the end of the day, the focus for a VC is, whenever we are deploying dollars or dirhams for that matter in any particular startup, the idea is for that startup to deliver outsized returns. We wouldn't invest in a company that we think could be okay-ish, or it may just survive or get through a certain stage. Now, more often than not, they don't work, but the ones that do work do deliver those outsized returns that provide an incredible return for the fund and therefore for the investors as well. So what we look for is the market. It's very important to have an idea of, can this particular startup be a market leading startup within their own particular niche or their own sector that they're focusing in? That's one. So market potential. Can they have a unique, sustainable competitive advantage? So are they able to create a moat around them that is difficult for other startups to replicate? So they can deliver that particular advantage in the market for a sustained period of time, to then therefore grow to a certain stage beyond the initial seed money or Series A money that the VCs provide to them, and then go on to the next level and do deliver those outsized returns. I guess another one, of course, which is very important, probably the most important, is team. Who you are putting your money towards. At the end of the day, these are the people that are building the startup. How are they qualified to build it? Why them to build this particular idea? The qualifications they have, the passion they have, the vision they have for the particular startup, potentially the management skills they have, whether it's coming to manage their own team, and how they even plan to deploy the money given to them, and how does that fall in the grander scheme of things? Not only just the founder, but also, the supporting founders, also more like the chief technical officer, potentially. Do they have someone specialist in the marketing of, growth hacking a particular startup per se? So it's very important to see, can they then be that startup who can deliver the moat for that unique sustainable advantage for the company? Another one, of course, is traction. If they are at a little higher stage than, say, just the pre-seed or idea level, have they been able to test the market? What's the response been from the market? Have they been able to generate positive feedback or even negative feedback, and how they've responded to that moving forward to convert into a positive direction? So those are a few things we'll look at. And of course, the business model economics. Is there a path to profitability here somewhere down the line? And does that really lead to a value creation for the startup, which then results in value creation for the fund itself?
Yeah. Should I?
Sorry, Angad, you had a point?
No, so I just wanted to add on the day-to-day life. So as Neeraj really said, obviously it's pretty dynamic, but there's a twist to emerging managers like Sanjeet and us. Like, we are, obviously this is our fund one, so everything has to be started from scratch. So for us, day to day is very, very different. Each day is different. So one day we are working on deal flows. Okay, we have deal scouts, make partnerships with the accelerators in the world who have access to those deal flows. So one day we're talking to founders, but at the same time, we're looking for investors as well, because fundraising is, as Neeraj usually will understand, is the hardest and the strongest point over here. So, we're co-reaching out investors. We are creating Excel sheet on who our LPs can be, whether it's family offices, multi-offices, HNIs, sovereign wealth funds, other corporations. So, reaching out to them, co-reaching out to them on LinkedIn, maybe their emails. So, and defining a success ratio. And for our success ratio, like Touchwood, has been really great. So yeah, just wanted to add, like, for us, it's more reaching out to the market, creating our own credibility with the partnerships that we have had. And once we have that ball rolling, it gets easier for us.
So Angad, what we talked about, what does it take perhaps to become a VC? Then how do you focus? What does your day look like? You have to raise fund, then you have to find opportunities to invest in all that. How about what kind of stages, if you could describe, when you do find an opportunity, what kind of stages a deal kind of goes through in your world?
For sure. I think so. There's obviously like a 6-part due diligence process that happens. So initially, obviously, you have that conversation with the founder. And then second part is you dig in the data room. Like, obviously, they'll give you the financials, maybe the traction they've had, the projections they're looking into. We dig in that. Third part is do the market research of ourselves. So me and Sanjeev are the only part of the team. So we're doing research on ourselves, like, okay, seeing what the customers are saying, seeing how the markets will be accepting it in the coming 5 years, because venture capitals are all about future. You need to project about 5 years. Okay, what's happening to the market 5 years from now? And as Sanjeev mentioned, we have that acronym pitches, which we look into how the market is there, how the strategy is there. For this, like we dig in more. So we have a second meeting with the founder. We have a meeting with the team as well. Keep conducting our due diligence, and the last part will be presenting it to the investment committee. So we have our investment committee who have been part of the ecosystem for a while. So one of the guys in our investment committee, he has been a seed investor in Uber, Paytm, Spotify. The second is like one of the guys is, so he has been named as top 100 powerful man in Dubai, and he has been in the media and entertainment business. And our thesis revolves around media and entertainment. So we have created an investment committee of like keeping that as a focal point so that our advisory committee is strong. And once they're advising us, we know that we are investing in a right investment. I don't know, Sanjeev, if you want to add something.
I think, yeah, perfectly captured in some sense. Going along those lines, it looks very different in terms of where you are in the fund life cycle as well. So obviously, as a fund one for us, Neeraj Virji has been in the ecosystem for a long time now. Has a more accomplished path in the ecosystem so far. So for us, it looks very much like what Angad mentioned. We need to keep prioritization at the prime. It's very important to get the right sort of startups that come through us, but also to connect with like-minded investors, not only just investors who are just going to be, just passive. So we want investors who want to be a part of the ecosystem, of course, to generate returns as well, but to qualify them to be able to work together on this, sports media and entertainment fund that we're creating, which is also athlete-centric in some sense. But it's been an exciting journey, and love working with Angad, and it's 2 Sikhs coming on board to do this. It's an exciting time for us to take things forward.
As I was growing up, I learned that Punjabis usually don't plan; they just do it and then think about what happened. And it seems like to me that the VCs, even though the personality that you need is of a Punjabi, where you're gonna be a curious person and create a network and do whatever you need to do to make it happen, you still have to sort of plan and think through and all that. It's a little bit of a triangulation going on between your partners and your opportunities that you look for. Can anybody join? I guess you have to have money. So anybody can join a VC fund, or what are your thoughts there? What are you guys, usually when you don't look at me and say, oh, let me talk to Parminder, he could be a good partner as an investor. What do you guys look for? How do you go about it, Neeraj?
Sure. I think I'm going to break your question into 2 parts. One is what kind of an individual can start a venture fund, and then what kind of an individual can become part of a venture fund that's already up and running. I think for the first part, who can start a venture fund, if you like the lifestyle of what we've talked about, which is being engaged with emerging companies, and you want to do this for a living, I think it appeals to a broad group of people. Obviously, you have to be hardworking, smart. It helps if you already have some capital, because it's much easier to go fundraise when you can tell investors, hey, I'm putting my own capital to work here as well. So, I'm not just putting your capital to work. So I think that's super helpful. So I think that's the first part. The second part, in terms of building a venture team, that's one of the unfortunate things, especially in the United States. There's a lot of research and data that shows that venture funds are a very close-knit group. And I hate to use stereotypes, but it's been kind of a white man's club for a very long time. And there's not a lot of women in venture. There's obviously not a lot of Punjabis in venture. So, who can join? Historically, people coming out of the Ivy Leagues that are white and male have pretty much gotten into the venture world. Again, I'm just being very direct in my response to your question. I think as the world evolves, and it's evolved quite a bit just in the last 5 years, there are cracks in that system. I'd like to think that we're all kind of helping create some of those cracks. I think if you're hardworking, smart, you understand deal making, you understand technology, and of course, Indians in particular have done quite a bit of work in technology in the last 3 decades or so. I think you're going to see a lot of changes in the VC ecosystem. So my encouragement to anybody that's interested in being a VC is, if you love technology, you don't mind working long hours, and this is something that you're passionate about, you can join, knock on doors. As we grow my business, I know we'll be looking to add people, and we're going to not be looking just to the traditional folks that have gotten into venture.
Great. Sanjeet, any thoughts?
Yeah. May I add to that? I think, wonderfully you said, Neeraj Vijay. In some sense, there's a lot of different ways to be part of venture capital. One is, of course, to be fund managers like us who are building the venture capital fund, bringing everyone together from the networks. But there's quite a lot of ways. Obviously, a startup founder is also part of the ecosystem. So make your own startups and work with VCs is one. But the other one is to become a limited partner in the fund. Yep. So an investor to come and invest in the fund rather than typically what we do. And we had a great conversation with Gary Vijay also earlier. In some sense, it's trying to drive the community towards different asset classes like venture capital, for example. We typically look at, okay, we got a lot of money, and then I'm pitching in some Punjabi here, but let's put some money in an FD or put in real estate or something. But we're missing out in some sense. There's an incredible amount of growth that venture capital provides, of course, if you're working with the right venture capital team. Because if we just think about it this way, these are companies that are at the ground up, have a higher growth potential. You come in at a stage before Facebook became Facebook, Google became Google, Twitter became Twitter. And that's the opportunity that investors have to become part of the ecosystem as well. So, as limited partners, as one example. Then you could also become a venture partner to be involved in some sense. So that's more of a part-time commitment. You work with the fund, you help them maybe deal source, you help them with fundraising, with strategic objectives, with other kind of day-to-day actions in some sense, if they can't contribute to that level, or help with partnerships, with relationships. And then there's also deal scouts. So you can work with VCs earlier on in some sense to help them find the best kind of deals. Yes, there's a lot of inbound leads that come forward. If you say you're a VC in a particular space, a lot of startups will reach out to you, but we do want to get access to the higher creme de la creme startups as well. And sometimes they're a bit hidden in the market. They can come in from an inbound source, but sometimes it's also outbound. So you have deal scouts that work with you. Like we have deal scouts that we've deployed in different target geographies that come on board with us. So at the end of the day, for our perspective, it's all about surrounding yourself with the right kind of people, which is what Angad was also mentioning, the advisory and investment committee that we've built. So we could have blind spots too that they will see through their experience. So surround yourself with the right kind of people, and from the people who are interested to be a part of it, you could be a VC, you could join a VC, you could be a limited partner investor in the VC, you could be a deal scout, you could be a venture partner as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Angad, do you have any thought on that? Because we'll have a question that came from the audience I'd like to add.
No, I think so. Just addition to what Sanjeet said, as obviously there are Punjabi families coming from Delhi myself. I come from a real estate family. I have 3 brothers. 2 of my brothers are doing family business. I'm the only guy in the family who made a CV. So you should have the drive. You should have the passion to do it. I've been away from home 8 years, 9 years, obviously, hustling. And I am here because of my passion, because I am ambitious. So if you have the ambition, if you have the passion, your background, your family background doesn't matter. So you'll be fine.
Let me ask you a question from an entrepreneur's point of view, or somebody who's looking to go to a VC. What kind of things in your experience, and this came from the audience, 2 questions. As an entrepreneur, what should you look for when you are talking to VCs? And secondly, if you are an investor, what should you look for? Obviously, you need to be decent people. If you're Punjabi, is even better. But what should you look for? You guys are sitting in, what should somebody, look for in you guys? Anybody?
I could take a crack at it, and you guys can help me fill out the answer. But I think as an entrepreneur, if you're trying to figure out which venture group do I want to take money from, there's several things. One, you want to look into the reputation of that venture firm, right? Because over time, venture firms build up reputations. Some have reputations as entrepreneur friendly, some not so much. Number two, is this venture group somebody that's done investing in your industry? Do they know a little bit about your industry, right? There's two schools of thought. So there's a school of thought that it's okay to take money from a generalist VC fund. My personal opinion is you're better off taking money from a fund that focuses in your space, in your industry, because in addition to the check that VC is going to write, they have an ecosystem. They have senior people, they have relationships that can be super valuable as your business grows. And you're not necessarily going to get that from a generalist VC firm. So find a VC firm that's done deals that are kind of in your industry. I think that's number two. That's very important. Number three, and I'm always surprised a lot of entrepreneurs don't do this. If you've passed kind of the first screen with that venture fund and it looks like the conversation is going really, really well, pick up the phone or pick up the email and reach out to their other portfolio companies. Don't ask for permission. Just look at their website. They'll tell you which companies they're invested in, and just call those CEOs and say, it looks like you took money from this VC fund. How are they worked with? Do they actually do more than just write a check? Have they been super helpful? So there's a lot you can do. Think of this as a 5-year to 7-year marriage. And just like you wouldn't do that with, without some diligence, make sure you've researched that venture fund before you've taken their money. Sanjeev, I'm good. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the core of it, it's alignment. You need to have alignment as an entrepreneur with the investor and vice versa. So I think, from our perspective as well, Needed VG, we do follow in that latter school of thought, in the sense that it's better for entrepreneurs who are building in a particular sector to work with VCs who are from that sector, who are investing in companies in that sector. So that's very important. And I think one thing that, being an entrepreneur myself and, having, startup founder friends in the ecosystem too, as an initial thought, when you're building something, you're like, okay, I'm building this in this particular ecosystem. Now I want to go and raise money. I should talk to, Andreessen Horowitz. I should talk to, General Partner. I should talk to all the big VCs in some sense. But what's very important is to understand, what is that VC particularly standing for? How much of a fund they have? How many deals can they allocate? What kind of check sizes or the range of check sizes can they write? And is that then again aligned to what you're looking for? Certain VCs are only by mandate can only write checks $3 or $4 million and beyond. Certain VCs start with 50,000, certain start with $250,000, and maybe you're looking for 300,000. So that investor B is perhaps better for you to then have those conversations with, rather than just, I'm going to joke about this all the time in the approach, and it works for both investors and entrepreneurs. It's spray and pray. You put it everywhere. And if it works, it works. It's like, it's on a gamble in some sense, versus what we like to say, vet and then bet. So you qualify yourself as an entrepreneur for the investor, and of course, vice versa. And then you go for, who you've had more alignment with, how have the conversations progressed, how they work with their portfolio companies before, and, can they provide you that market access? It's not only about capital, and especially in today's world. We do see ourselves also as value add VCs, because we do want to genuinely provide value to our startups, because their success is our success. So, can we open doors for them? Do we have presence in the ecosystem? Can we, get them, through the doors for a particular market that they're looking for, or a sector, or some kind of expansion, or recruitment, whatever it is. And that happens when you belong to, the school of thought that Vijay mentioned, when you have that focus, and that takes you forward.
I'm good. Any thoughts?
I don't want to. It's a complete good answer.
Okay, excellent. personally, I think VCs are very cool, but they're also called vulture capitalists, right? I feel like we as a community can do a whole lot to promote businesses and entrepreneurship around the world. Two questions that come to mind regarding that, as you guys answered, where from an investor perspective, obviously, or from an entrepreneur perspective, if you're going to deal with a VC, check references and such and see who can help you most. But as a community, if I want to start a VC fund, do I have to have a lot of money, or do I have to keep calling Gary or Neeraj or you guys to do something? Or what are your thoughts? Anybody can start a VC fund?
I think it does help to have capital for sure, in some sense, like Neeraj also mentioned. As he also mentioned, we've been starting to see those cracks emerge. Previously, of course, you're at, again, going back to that generalization, but it's true. It was a privileged class for entry to become a VC, but we're starting to see those cracks emerge through, pushes and initiatives by people from different, backgrounds that are coming into the space. And I do think now anyone can potentially become a VC. You don't need to particularly have your own capital deployed if you don't have it per se. But obviously, think about it in the same sense when you are a startup. You try to go to the triple F, right? We call it friends, family, and fools. Whoever you can convince to give you that money, in some sense. So if you can, if you have the network of friends, and everyone has somebody who they know could be potentially interested to invest, if they have that innovative bent of mind that I want to be investing in emerging technologies, I want to be part of a new asset class, I want to diversify my own portfolio, it's an avenue for them to invest. So you're providing an opportunity for them to come on board also. So it doesn't, it's not mandated now. It helps for sure because you have skin in the game and you have maybe got commitments from family and friends or yourself. But yes, I think nowadays a lot of emerging funds are coming across. There's a specific programs for underrepresented emerging managers. Also, there's accelerators that we were a part of. Just to start, how do you know how to get started? And be aggressive, keep in right intent, be focused, be passionate, have the right idea and intention to do good to yourself and to the larger community you're trying to build. And I do believe that now anyone can get started.
That's excellent. We have about 8 or 9 minutes left. So first of all, I want to thank you for those awesome insights. I guess I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship and our community. So as a community, and this is for the three of you, I think I'd just like to have an open discussion for the last few minutes. If there are any questions from the audience, I would love to take them now. But where do we go from here? As I commend you both to kind of jump in, and then obviously people like Neeraj, who've been veterans and are always there to help and guide and mentor. But as a community, where do you guys think that we go from here at this point on? What do you guys think needs to occur and happen? And we can start with you, Angad.
Oh, I believe Sanjeet will be giving a better answer for this for sure.
Okay, Sanjeet.
What's really important is to have things like this, first of all. And I really commend the PCC for putting us all together to get the conversations rolling. If we don't have a focused idea about talking about something, it's not going to happen. So kudos to the entire PCC team for getting us all together to talk about VC and the world of venture capital. Awareness, again, is the key thing, right? The more we know about it, the more conversations we have, the more interest is generated. But as a community, I think I would implore everyone to be open-minded, think about how you can get involved in those 4 or 5 ways that we all discussed, whether it's becoming a VC, joining a VC, investing in a VC, a deal scout, or a venture partner. There's always scope, and there are people now in the ecosystem that are starting to get through those cracks. So we need to support each other as a community. We need to be there for each other. There's successful examples, within the African American community, for example, and I think they've done an incredible job And shout out to Harlem Capital from New York. They've done, I think, a fantastic job. As I think there were 3 or 4 African-American venture capitalists, just maybe a couple of years older than Angad and I, coming out of business school, and they wanted to get into the space. They realized there's not a lot of people that look like them, and they wanted to invest in, founders from, underrepresented backgrounds, for example. They did really well. They went to people within their community to ask for support. Of course, a larger venture capital ecosystem, once you get momentum, it's a momentum game that drives it forward. But they went to their community. They said, we want to do this. We want to be, leading the way towards more, African Americans coming into this space. So how are ways you can help us, whether that's introductions to other venture capital partners that invest in VCs, or maybe they themselves invest in VCs, or there's a referral that they can get to, a family office, or, an investor that wants to invest, or whether that's, encouraging a startup to come into the ecosystem. We need more Sikh founders. We need more Punjabi founders. Absolutely, we need that growth. So what helps us also is that our presence hopefully inspires more people to become VCs, but also to become founders, because that is, a benchmark for us to follow. There's a lot of communities that are starting to do that now. So we need to be there. We need to stick together and, I guess, support each other, because we have everything, like you said, the spirit and energy that it takes to venture capital. There's not a lot better than Punjabis that fit the profiles. So we have everything it takes, I think, and as a community, we should just strive to support each other in any way possible, whether that's introductions, investment, starting something of our own. And I think, there's no reason why we can't be, there have more VCs that come through the ecosystem that look like us now.
Yeah, I think so. Completely agree with Sanjeet. Just one point, obviously, as he said about the black funds coming up, we need more brown funds as well. Like, we need brown funds. We need the support of the community to make that a phenomenon like the black funds that are out there.
Excellent. Well, in the last few minutes, I'll pass on to the Grand Poobah, Mr. Neeraj, for some closing comments, and then I'll pass it on to Nimrit.
Thanks, Parminder. So look, I think I have a heavy heart of gratitude to the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce, right? To Sanjeet's point, this builds because it starts with an idea. And so the PCC gets credit for creating this and giving us an opportunity to talk to the broader community about what we're doing. From here, for this to build and grow, I'm happy to commit my personal time, if it's a Saturday, Sunday, or during the week, whatever. But to be part of this ecosystem, to be part of this community, it's important for me personally, because I am Punjabi, to make sure that there are more opportunities for Punjabi entrepreneurs, for Punjabi venture capitalists, and this whole ecosystem that we've talked about. I would welcome Sanjeet and Angad, if you guys want to do a quarterly call like this, or every 6 months, I don't know what the right frequency is, but I know that if we kind of keep the dialogue going and the conversation going, and we're front and center of everybody's mind, that this ecosystem, because it is, for as long as I've been alive, I've known Punjabis to be the most entrepreneurial part of India. So I don't know of any reason why Punjabis will not succeed in this part of the entrepreneurial box, if you will. So I'm happy to commit my time. I hope everybody that's listening in today is interested. I would welcome a frequent check-in, a frequent update, and let's build this thing together.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And one thing we have done today as Punjabis is we'll stick to time. We never do that. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate your candor and your deep insights, and wish you, my brothers, huge luck in your endeavors. And if there's anything I can do, as always, I'll be there to help. And I'll see you guys in UAE and maybe in London shortly. Thank you. And Nimrit, back to you.
Thank you so much. This is so wonderful. I mean, I didn't even know how the time flew, right? So it was engaging, engrossing. We were in it. Thank you so much for throwing such beautiful light. And I love the way the community is coming together. We need more and more of this. And that's why PCC is there, exactly for this reason. We need to create more funds out there and help our own community grow. That's the whole idea of PCC. Thank you so much for taking our time. And Parminder, appreciate this last minute glitch that we had. You did a great job.
I will
you.
send you bill for Shonevature. It's coming.
Thank you so much, Nimraji, for this initiative. It was a pleasure.
It was wonderful. I am missing our founder, Gary Pastricha. He's not come on into the, because everybody's got different links. And it is thanks to him that we are doing what we are doing, right? So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. I really, truly appreciate it and look forward to doing more of these sessions. I can be available anytime.
I'm sure. Within 5 minutes? Yes.
You can call him at 2 a.m. as well.
I mean, the way he just, okay, fine, right. And he was on. And it's his morning, right? So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal.